Hello, friend. Welcome to another episode of the Mount Rushmore of Everything. Today, we are talking about NFL franchises. It's the second episode in our little mini-series on the NFL to celebrate the coming of the NFL season. Sam, start us off.
Well, I think I have three non-negotiables. I'll just go with the one that I think is the best, and that is the Steelers.
Interesting.
Best.
Best. Interesting.
Best.
Fighting words. Your reasoning?
Super Bowls. They're just a great franchise. They tend to always have good coaches, good teams. I mean, even last year, they didn't have their Hall of Fame quarterback, and they almost made it to the playoffs with two horrible backups. So usually they have a good staff on them. They have good quarterbacks, just a good franchise.
For sure. I agree. I also agree that it's non-negotiable. I had it as probably the third most iconic franchise, but it's definitely in that top three regardless of where you put them. They also are tied at number 2 for Super Bowl appearances, tied for number 1 for Super Bowl wins. And that's something important to me, as I wanted representation in different generations. The Steelers have shown greatness throughout history. They won 4 of 4 Super Bowls in the 70s, 0 of 1 Super Bowl they did go to in the 90s. In the 2000s, they won 2 out of 2 Super Bowls, and then in the 2010s, they also went to a Super Bowl, but lost. So they clearly have been a great team throughout the years, which is very, very, very important to me. Number 12 in winning percentage, not super impressive, but solid, top half of the league. And number 2 in playoff games played.
Just to say, I do agree. They're pretty well liked, not just
sure.
the U.S., but even beyond. So it's an iconic team. They have legacy.
Absolutely.
So,
for the record, I sort of include fan base as a part of the iconic. In this case, when I say iconic, I mean like all the like intangibles that you can't say. Like how good is the fan base? How big is the fan base? How rabid are they? And have they been for a while? Is the fan base willing to still be good even when the team sucks? Because that's
do they travel?
Like, yeah, do they travel is a good one. And then just in general, like what are, like I live in Ohio. So to see Steelers, Browns, and Bengals are like obviously going to be here.
Right.
But then like there are questions of like, okay, if I'm in New England, besides New England, what other teams show up that aren't close teams? Steelers are going to be one of those top 3 or 4 all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, so I think of NFL and I think of tradition and legacy and iconography, and they have everything, I think, personally. But I'm going to go with the Dallas Cowboys.
100% agree.
Because I had it in my head already. When I did the research, I realized they are called America's team. So that alone, I'm in the right. I'm assuming people are going to agree with that.
Oh yeah.
But they have a lot of yeah.
I have 3 non-negotiables, but that is that first tier of non-negotiable in my opinion. Like it is there's no argument. Like you said, the America's team thing. So I put number 1 for iconic. It's top 3 at least. Number 2 in Super Bowl appearances, tied again because there's a bunch tied at number 2. Number 3 in Super Bowl wins, also a little weird representation. So in the 70s, they won 2 out of 5 Super Bowls they went to. And then in the 90s, they won 3 out of 3. So if there's any question marks about them, it's about like how good are they actually over time? Because they basically have 2 eras of good, and then the rest has been, like the last 20 years, they've been largely irrelevant. But number 1 in overall winning percentage still. Number 1 in playoff games played. And like you said, America's team. So even beyond the iconicness, the America's team, they're still, overall, even after 20 years of not being that good, they're still the number 1 in winning percentage and in playoff games played, which is very impressive.
Yeah.
It shows how great they were before, which is probably part of why they're America's team, because people tend to follow the good teams.
So Dallas Cowboys, I think everyone agrees with that.
Yeah. They're not one of my non-negotiables, and that's simply because there's only one other team that I think is on the same level as the Steelers. And the Cowboys aren't that. Even though they're iconic, I don't think they are non-negotiable.
He just said they have been consistently, like, they still winners.
Right, but the other team that I'm thinking of has been winners basically since the beginning of the NFL.
My third non-negotiable, I have a feeling it's your second. In my opinion, this is probably the second most iconic team, and that is the Packers.
Yes.
Okay, I agree.
Yep.
Tied at number 6 for Super Bowl appearances at 5, which isn't super impressive. Tied at number 5 for Super Bowl wins at 4, also not super impressive. But 60s won 2 of 2, the first 2 Super Bowls. 90s won 1 out of 2. 2010s won 1 out of 1. So they've been great throughout time. They have 3 of the most iconic quarterbacks of all time. Like, it's very easy to see a top 20 list where 3 or 4 of their quarterbacks are on there. Probably 3. Number 2 in winning percentage, and number 3 tied in playoff games played. Also, only 2 teams in the NFL today are older than this team, because this team was made in 1920. And then 2 teams are older, the Bears and the Cardinals, which the Cardinals surprised me. But it is the first great team in the NFL, won many championships before Super Bowls were a thing. I'm heavily weighing mostly Super Bowl era. But if we do give some points to pre-Super Bowl era, this was the team before Packers. We agree 3 for 3 so far.
Look at that.
Who is the brave soul that will give their 4th one first?
I'll go with it.
All right, go ahead.
I was thinking Patriots, Broncos, and I was thinking 49ers.
Those are my exact 3 that I think can be there.
But I went with the 49ers.
Okay.
Same reasoning as Packers. These teams are all over the place. You know, you have the South with Dallas, and you have Pittsburgh. You have the Packers, and I felt like we needed something on the other side. And I was thinking, okay, who is iconic? Who has had a consistent presence in the NFL that is respected and that has a legacy and all that? And I think the 49ers are that team. I think it's an old team. I think there are a lot of fans. They won Super Bowls. They have what it takes, I think. But I would have been okay with Broncos.
Patriots.
The Patriots, yes.
Yeah.
The reason why I didn't pick the
Patriots. Other ones
Patriots.
that maybe could be there, but I think those are the 3 real contenders.
Right. I think the Patriots, the reason why, because I could have easily gone, obviously, the Super Bowls.
Sure.
But it's not just about that for me. I think that it's just in the last decade, 2 decades, that they have been really big.
That is a very fair criticism. What's your 4th, Sam?
I want to hear yours first.
All right. Well, mine is going to be a little bit of a breakdown. So I eventually wanted to make rules. So I narrowed down to at least 5 Super Bowl appearances. 10 teams qualify. Cowboys, Steelers, Packers, Patriots, Broncos, 49ers, Redskins, Dolphins, Giants, Raiders. And then I said, okay, you also need at least 3 wins, because only 9 teams have at least 3 wins, which eliminated the Dolphins from that list. And then I said at least 28 years between Super Bowl appearances. And before you say that's a random number, no. There are 54 Super Bowls. So I cut it in half. I want some representation on both halves of league history. That eliminates the Redskins and the Giants. So now we're left, besides the 3 that we already have locked in, Patriots, Broncos, 49ers, Raiders. Then I said Super Bowl wins in 2 different eras, meaning you can't have the same coach or quarterback, certainly not both. That eliminates the Patriots. So that leaves the Broncos, 49ers, and Raiders. Then I said at least 18 years between Super Bowl wins. That is a third of the Super Bowl era. I thought that was fair, right? Like to have at least in different thirds. So that eliminated both the 49ers and the Raiders, leaving me with, yes, my Denver Broncos. But 49ers had 13 years in between their first and last win. Raiders, only 7 years. That is extra, will not compromise. If all of your Super Bowl wins are within 7 years, that sounds like you had a great era, and then you're done. Because even the Patriots have had more space between, even though it was one dynasty. Which really leaves the 49ers and the Broncos for me. 49ers, the question mark is all Super Bowl wins were within 13 years. Pretty small window. And then the Broncos, there was 18 years between Super Bowl wins. Number 12 for playoff games played is maybe a question mark, but for the most part, I mean, they had a Super Bowl pre-Elway that they went to. They've been tied for the second most Super Bowls. John Elway is on the cusp, if not deserving, of the Mount Rushmore, so they had 2 Mount Rushmore quarterbacks. Sam, what is your pick?
49ers. They're close to being non-negotiable.
Interesting.
I feel like they're like the Cowboys in a way where almost everyone knows who the 49ers are.
Let us know what you think in the comments below. What your 4 are. Do you agree with either of us? Do you think that the 49ers or Broncos should be in that final spot? Do you have somebody else like the Patriots there? Let us know why. Don't just tell us that you disagree. Tell us why. We want to engage in a discussion. I want a thoughtful reply so that I can give you a thoughtful reply. That's what makes this fun. And if you give a good enough argument, we'll talk about it in the season finale live stream, which will be a blast to do. So make sure that you give a thought-provoking comment. Drop a like if you enjoyed this video, which if you made it to this point, you probably did, right? Because it's been a while and you're still here. Also, be sure to subscribe, click that little notification bell so you know when new videos come out. Right now, they're coming out every single Thursday. We will talk to you next time. For example, if the Browns win the Super Bowl and become the first 19-0 team this year, I'm not going to then declare them the greatest franchise of all time, right? Because it's a blip on the radar of an otherwise terrible franchise. No offense, Browns fans, but you know it's true. Even if the Browns won the Super Bowl 7 times in a row, we're not going to declare them the greatest franchise ever. It's taking it to an extreme. That's an example of like that would just be a great dynasty.